right, we're here, episode 24 of the War Room. We got TJ McCullough of Dead Man Derby Productions joining us. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, man. How's it going?
It's going. So that's wanted to have you on here. We're doing a little recap of your show, and I guess I'll just start it off with I think I heard you say on Tuesday. We can give these guys a little background of what it's like to be a promoter. And I think I heard on Tuesday you guys showed up to the track and it was like underwater.
Yeah, absolutely. So we showed up on Tuesday, and I'll have to post that video. It's a pretty cool video. I just wanted to stroll out and, thank God I do some of the crazy stuff that I do, because the only reason I went out there was to show the wrestlers what I had in store for them for how they were going to come through as kind of like their mock-up, WrestleMania Dead Man entrance. Okay, and I walked out and I'm like, oh boy, we're in trouble here, man. And I looked, and the center of the track was crowned long ways and sideways. And what that had ended up doing was causing the track to hold about, I'd say, anywhere from 6 inches of water to about 18 inches of water in spots. And it started getting really, really bad. And I'm like, dude, we got 3 days, before we're on the track. And I'm supposed to be rolling this thing on Thursday afternoon, and I can't roll, that much water. So we went and we got submersible sub pumps, and we pumped water off that track for probably 14 hours.
So tell me, that's crazy. Tell me a little bit more. I'm sure you weren't that calm when you saw all that water. I mean, what's the chaos behind?
You know what, Dustin? Honestly, like 2 years ago, I agree with you. I would not have been that calm. I have really found a way. Listen, after you've promoted, after you've answered those questions at 9 o'clock at night when you're trying to enjoy family time, at 6 o'clock in the morning, when you're just waking up before work or whatever, and after you've had your face chewed off for something you didn't do wrong, I mean, you learn patience really quick. They always say, don't ask God for patience, because he'll give you the opportunity to be patient. Well, if you want to be patient, learn how to be a promoter, because that is one of the hardest things to do, is to learn patience. So I took it on the chin. I just said, I called my track guy and I said, listen, this is what we got. Here's the video. And he went, wow, okay. You want me to go over? And I'm like, yep. And of course, Dustin, that comes with an extra financial burden out of our pocket. It's more equipment, it's more time, it's more labor hours. Thank God we got a great crew. They were in there starting on Wednesday on Tuesday they were in there, because I went Monday and saw the track, but Tuesday they were in there pumping water for 8 hours, back dragging some stuff and knocking the wall, because we wanted to extend the track about 20 more feet, and we ended up going 30 more feet. And then the next day again, pumping water again, and then cleaning the pump to send it back so you don't get the cleaning fee. You know how all that is. And then finally it started coming to fruition that we were going to have a track, and we cut a lot of portions out of that track that have gotten people stuck in the past. And thanks to Bill Glowacki, Nate Schultz Jr., Senior, they killed it. They gave us a good track.
Yeah, I think they did. As a competitor there that weekend, I personally kept coming out to the track and just checking it out every heat, and it seemed to get better and better and better. Obviously, you guys dealt with more obstacles throughout the weekend, raining and whatnot, but I wasn't up at the track all the time. But the days that we were running, we would go up and check it. There was definitely spots that you wanted to avoid, but throughout, even like when our feature ran, I didn't really feel like there was any bad spots out there. It looked like there was going to be, but it kind of took care of itself.
Well, we were really afraid to when we came in on Sunday morning. It had been raining since about 3 a.m. And I'm like, man, this is going to be rough. And I talked to my track guy, and he said, listen, it's going to look really bad, but we're going to leave that water on top of it. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I know this track. I know what we got underneath of it. There's a reason why that water's sitting on top of it. It's because it's hard underneath. It's got a solid surface to lay on. He said it'd be really bad if there was nothing on top of it and it was all soaked in, because then it's all turning up and everything. He goes, let's let these compacts go out here, or let's do a full-size class and let's get it mixed up a little bit. And once it started mixing it up a little bit, then we scraped the top of it off immediately, and we had our track back. Because it's hard to just push water, because it's got to go somewhere, right? And there's nowhere really to go when you're sitting in the center of two grandstands without pumps, and you can't pump it for 8 hours in the middle of the track. So it worked out that we left it the way it was. And you're right. Like, by your feature time, it was there was enough stick to it that I didn't think that it really got muddy. It just got tacky, if you will. And your car is one of the cars that I really watched because there's never a time in a promoter's life where he wants to look and say the track beat that guy. And I have seen that track eat up round back wagons in the leaf springs to where they can't go backwards because they get buried in the leaves. And that always worries me with those low hanging perches and everything like that on them wagons. So I was watching to see if it did, and then you got a flat tire, and I'm like, okay, now it's even lower. I'm like, so and the track never took you away. You were still able to get enough traction to kind of get it around. So yeah, shout out to those guys. It maintained, it held up well.
I was definitely concerned myself going out there. I was cutting my shackle clamps. I was cutting like the bolts off, like really, like right at the nut. Like I was doing all kinds of things to make sure that I was not going to be lower than what I had to be. And then obviously I did get that flat tire. You said you were watching me. You know, they mentioned that on Track Shot too. You were watching me a lot, TJ.
Well, I was paying attention to my zone, and you just happened to end up in my zone. And when I say about zones, is if you take a track for the casual fan listening out there, obviously you know what I'm talking about. But for the casual fans listening, we do not watch the Derby. If you're watching the Derby as an official, you're making a mistake. Honestly, you're putting yourself at risk for injury. You know, here I am talking, almost got killed by a car the other day, but nevertheless, like you watch that one zone and you just happen to be right in my zone, kind of working into my zone and out of my zone. You were dead in front of me, and then Justin Reniger, and then I believe it was Devin Allen. Ended up right in the center of my zone without the wheel. So I basically, if you said TJ, how was the super stock? Well, I saw Devin Allen try to not lose his shot clock for about 18 minutes with three wheels. And I was thoroughly impressed watching somebody with three wheels stay in it because he never really got to 55, 60 seconds. It was always right there on that 42, 47, 46. And my thumb was getting worn out because he would find a way to kind of make it work. But that was basically my derby. I was watching him. I watched the back of your car coming into my zone, watched you go away. If you made a hit, I'm looking to see if you're good, if the driver you hit's good. And that was my derby. So, you know, an hour and 20 minutes of watching YouTube.
Yeah, well, hopefully it was somewhat entertaining. Well, I
It
guess
was.
we can jump into that a little bit. There's I think we've talked about this in private conversations, and I know this is we've talked about this type of stuff on here, but there needs to be a certain type of education, you know, with the casual fan, and we definitely get some casual fans that don't quite understand everything that's going on in our cars. So we got some booing at the end of that super stock feature. Now I had a GoPro in my car, and I've been showing footage, and I'll put a bunch more footage out. I'm really busy in that car. When you
Yeah.
watch it from the outside of the outside, it doesn't quite look like it, but like I'm real busy in the car.
Yeah, that's the weird part about. So, you and I are both still driving. We're still promoting. So, we kind of know what's going on inside. I guess the biggest thing, the only reason you hear booze on Sunday night is because of the typical way that I push pace throughout all the other heats, the way we reward our aggressive drivers, the Reapers, and the way that we kind of like amp those people up, and then all of a sudden there's a regular heat going on. And I never want to disrespect anybody else, but I feel if you take that same heat and move it 6 hours to the west, it might be 2.5 hours. It might be 3 hours. I mean, we've seen it in Illinois, we've seen it in Indiana, we've seen it in Ohio. Those heats can go a really long time. So for somebody to be upset about an hour 20 minutes, and it was the only time in the history of Dead Man that we've ever gone over an hour for a heat. We've never done it before. This is the first time. Now, what I want to bring up to people that were kind of upset about that is so we do reward those aggressive drivers and the Reapers for letting them come in late. This was the weirdest weekend for that because in the compact class and in the full size class, what we normally get is that first 5 minutes is a feeling out process. You guys are like waiting. You got your internal clocks around 4 minutes. You're starting to look to the corner, see what's going on. Maybe you're going to go block the corner or whatever you're going to do. You're kind of jockeying for that position, waiting for them big hits to come in. You don't want to be on the other end of it. Well, then they came in and just nothing happened. Like
Well, I wouldn't say
Paul.
nothing happened. I got smoked.
Yeah, I'm just saying for a typical dead man reapers coming in late, it was very relaxed. It's usually 10 minutes of straight hell. And that 10 minutes of hell usually knocks 20 minutes off the top, and we probably would have ended up around 50 minutes. If Paul Hendrickson, or excuse me, Brian Hendrickson comes in and doesn't break right away, he's sending it end to end. His dad just won the Reaper contract in the compacts. He's ready to back it up and go 2 for 2. He's coming in, he breaks right away. I mean, he's in the Derby for 30 seconds. And, it's like, that's what dictated the pace, is because we have those pace setters coming in late. And when they came in, unfortunately, it just wasn't as big of a bang as we'd kind of hoped. Call it a flop, call it whatever you want, but it's not always going to be perfect. And it worked out really well for you guys that are there for, that $15,000 to not have to deal with that for 10, 15 minutes straight because who knows, you had the flat tire on. I don't know if your flat tire was from you hitting and going under somebody.
No, it was from that hit.
It was from that hit?
Yeah. So you put them in 5 minutes into the heat, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be honest, I forgot all about it. I was so concerned about getting to one wall or the other because we got stuck right in the middle, and I never want to go in the middle.
Yeah.
And I was actually pretty disappointed. Like, I was kind of internally freaking out. I like to be on one side or the other, and I hate being in the middle because I knew I had enemies on both sides, and I didn't know, what was going to happen. So I was trying to jockey my way to that wall to safety, right, and put the back end of my car out, and say, all right, if you want to hit this thing, come hit it. Well, sorry, I got a phone call there. But I said, if you want to hit this thing, come hit it. Well, I forgot all about him coming in. And the next thing you know, I look back and I'm like, he's flying down the track. And I whipped it a little bit, and I was like, there's no way he's driving up in the back of this wagon. And somehow he got the angle, and I felt immediately my tire go, or my car go, whoom. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know, like, if I had a broken axle. It took me a second to identify what happened, and then I realized, well, I got a flat tire. So now you got to think, like, my whole mentality changes.
Yeah.
I have a flat tire on a shitty track, 5 minutes into this 15K feature that I'm trying to win. So I'm like, well, I don't even know if it's going to last. I don't know. It didn't start coming apart till later, but like, it was flat right there.
Yeah. And it's really funny that you, because I didn't catch it right away, but as soon as you came through my zone, I went and I was like, oh boy, that's gonna slow him down. I wonder how many people see that. And you're right, it held. I'm assuming you had a tire within a tire with an inner tube.
Yeah, I had all that.
So that gives it, that extra 5 minutes before, depending on how hard you're driving it, it gives you 10, whatever you want to call it. But it didn't really start showing up until about that halfway point where you really had to try to like work to position yourself into different angles, and you started being a little bit more aggressive with kind of like positioning people and making sure that you weren't putting yourself in bad positions, and then you would have to dig in while you were pushing, and you could kind of see it starting to kind of go apart. But I think Track Shot didn't even catch it until almost halfway through the heat is when they're like, oh, he's got a flat tire, and then somebody said, I think he had that a while ago. But kudos to you on that one, because
the wagon was going down. It was never going down.
No. It's funny. I had somebody at Stoneboro tell me the back end of my my 09 to 11 was going down, and I just shook them off like, it's not going down. They're like, well, the body's gone. I'm like, I don't care about that body. That frame's good. And yeah, you could see the wagon frame. And it was interesting because, like, you're right. Like, if I'm looking across the track and I'm like, I'm taking one dude as far as I can, I am not picking a round back wagon with the leaves sticking out. Like, it's not even in my, I mean, yeah, it's cool if it's got the body all the way on it and I can shear it all the way off to your gas tank protector. That's a different story. But when you already got it set like that, not a chance. I didn't expect it. But, kudos to, that's why Reapers are different, I guess.
Well, it's the sole reason why we cut it off, because it was a target.
Yeah.
And people are like, you're crazy for cutting it off. I'm like, look, I do not want this to be a target. And it was rolling great, but it was going to be a target for those caddies, and I was going to have my word cut out for them, or for me, because they were going to start pushing that sheet metal into the tires. I knew you couldn't get it flat on that track and win that Derby.
Yeah.
And behold, I got a flat, and obviously you're not, couldn't pull off the win, but um,
Now, I do want to talk about something you said. Um, you said about what you were doing in the car, and I think that's something that we don't catch a lot of. We don't have a lot of drivers share their GoPros, but there's so many people that do them. I know what you're talking about. I've been in the car and been like, man, I was working, like, and it's not always offensive working. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably 80% defense on it as a driver, 20% offense. I try to make my offense count. People call me a bagger. People call me a driver, whatever you want to call me. But I try to make those, you know, calculated defensive positions where like I'm letting the guy eat the cage, or I'm short stopping somebody to where they're chasing me around the corner, and I stop and they run into they run their front wheel into the back of my bumper, or little things like that. I like to play those little games, and I could see that you were kind of playing those games too and trying to position yourself into the right spot. So like I know what you're saying about the defensive, and I know what you're saying about working, but inside that car, 15 minutes of work where you are like positioning yourself not to take that one shot, because at this level with those back ends of these cars, it's one shot, or it's one corner of the bumper, it's one side of the bumper from a Cadillac. It's any of those ruin every chance that you have of that. And I think that some of the fans get lost in wanting to see that constant. I guess in 2023, I guess the best way to say it is we need constant entertainment, right? And it's not always that big shot that is the true entertainment. It's like, like the chess match. I mean, I enjoy watching a good chess match as long as you're trying to do something with it. There were times, I came out and I talked to you a couple of times and I said, we just need a little bit more, like fans are booing. You're like, they're booing? What are you talking about? I remember you saying, what do you mean they're booing? I was like, I don't know why they're booing. They're telling me to throw you out right now. Like, it was kind of funny. We kind of had that moment on the track. I'm like, literally, as I'm walking out here, I hear people going, throw him out, TJ. Get him.
I think at that time, because I have the footage, I think at that time I literally just put someone out on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, look, I mean, the guy was on the wall, I was putting him out. I was not letting him off that wall. That is not you can't throw somebody out for that.
And honestly, if I'm being honest, is it everything that I desired from a Heat? No, because it's not exactly what we want as a group. We want that banger, knock them down, 38-minute feature. But am I upset about it? Not at all. I wasn't upset about it at all. I actually thought it was one of our more enjoyable heats as far as like the methodicalness of it. I know Evan was really like trying to figure out what he was doing. Chance was in straight conservative mode. Like in my opinion, he drove an amazing race because of what he had coming in. Like, I know you probably didn't see the car. I got to see the car after the heat. It was hurt bad. They didn't have a whole lot to put back together. So for him to get down, I know he didn't want to take, a big front end shot. So he was really working the rear end of that car. The bumper starts flipping. So, I mean, he was really trying to just grind it out. And I mean, it was just fun to watch that. And when you know the ins and outs of that, it's more fun to watch. I talked, it's like hockey. If you don't know the rules of hockey, when you watch it, you're like, what is this? And you turn it off. If you know the ins and outs of it, you turn it off. Baseball used to be so boring watching a guy stand there for 30 seconds, watch a guy step out and put his hand up, like, wait, I don't want to go. Wait, I don't want to go. Until I started really understanding the true chess match that was involved in a batter versus a pitcher versus, anticipating the pitch, happen to step off a little bit to ruin the timing of the batter, ruin the timing of the pitcher. That became more fun to me, and I liked watching, and I'm a Red Sox fan, so we used to watch, Papelbon, put his head down and sit there for, 20 seconds, and it's like this intense moment. That's what that was for me. I was watching basically a 2015 World Series, game. That's how I would describe it.
Well, and I think there's a couple points there. It's like, it wouldn't have been as slow of a pace. Like, it wouldn't have lasted an hour and 20 minutes if there wasn't that much rain. Like, if it was a good track, there's no way we would have been able to move a lot quicker. Every shot would have been a kill shot, and it would have been a lot easier to get those, So you're slipping and sliding out there. It gets messy. It's messy. People, I tried to explain this on the last podcast last week, is I got 2 6-inch weapons in the back. Like, I've got to make those count and I can't just like get into it 30 feet away from someone and still get that shot on that tire. I've got to get like maneuver myself close enough. Hopefully they don't move or anticipate their movement in order because it's not going to hurt or help me if I get a shot on a door, with those two
Right.
rails. Every shot that I'm taking is on a tire somehow, some way, right? And then I think this GoPro footage can really help the education part of this. So this is one of my guys. He says, "Yeah, I can give it because this is what I've heard when I was going to do this. I was like, I'm going to do this, and they're like, oh, it's going to give away your driving style. I'm like, I don't care. Like the same thing that I heard when we were filming stuff in the garage. Oh, you're going to give away all the tricks to building the car. I'm like, I don't care. Like we're building the car in 2 weeks. There's not a lot of tricks that we're doing on this car. Okay. like, um, but hopefully this can be used for education, for the casual fan and just people. I mean, it's gotten plenty of views. We've had several videos get over 50, 60,000 from that weekend. So it's definitely getting out to people for sure.
Well, I like watching a GoPro video, not necessarily because it's like playing poker. You can sit and watch somebody play poker one time and they bluff with, and they end up turning over, seven deuce. Okay, so I got information, right? Well, the next hand, you're betting the same way. You're betting, the exact same amount. You rub your nose a little bit every time. You put your hand across your chin like this. You shove the same chips in there. I'm like, he's bluffing. I'm going to call him. Now you got kings, and now I'm screwed. Derby's like that. Is like I try to drive the same way every time. It doesn't always allow that to happen. Derby's an evolving plan. It's like when Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. It's very true. Everybody's got a plan until you get a flat tire. 5 minutes into an hour and 20-minute heat. I'm sure that wasn't your plan of how you wanted to drive that Derby. You had to go on the defense. And you had to be a little bit more secure and precise with your hits. Like you said, we don't allow the bumper to go straight to the rails. I let you put that bumper straight to the rails, you might win the Mad Dog. Because I mean,
If you allow me to put that bumper straight to the rails, there's not anybody that's going to have steering on the track.
Exactly. And that's why we don't do it as officials, right? Because it just,
I don't know. I mean, you
well,
should
I
have
mean,
let
there are
me. You know,
there are certain derbies that is awesome. I love watching that. I actually have one sitting in my front yard, bumper straight to the back rails, and dude, I'm telling you, that thing, every time you hit, you can miss by 6, 8, 10 inches, and you're still getting it. And
oh,
it's so much fun to drive a car like that. It's nobody can touch the back of it. You
I
can't
would
hurt it.
give you that Reaper and try to take home that money with a bumper on the back of that for sure.
Absolutely. So I mean, that does dictate that I have driven a wagon where the body's pretty much gone. You're not allowed to have the bumper to the thing. And I mean, we're taught to hit square with the center of the bumper on somebody's corner, right? I mean, that's kind of what the old school mentality is hit square on something that's not square. And in a wagon, the last thing you ever want to do is hit with a single rail, but that's the only way you can hit and be precise when the body's gone. So there are a lot of shots there that are difficult to make, and you're right. You mean your margin for error, especially on a slippery track, is very slim with that. But I like that people post videos and stuff like that because it's all about paying it forward in the sport, right? It's all about trying to advance the sport, like we've talked in the past about. I've done videos in my garage, and I'm just a booger eater from Cumberland, Maryland, that's just now starting to drive into some of the higher national level shows over the last 5 years. I'm nobody, but I cannot begin to tell you how many people that have less experience than I have reached out and said, "Man, that video, I was tilting a car way different than that, or I was using a torch to tilt it, or I wasn't tilting it there. I wasn't cutting all the tabs loose. I wasn't rewelding all the tabs. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you should inspect a car there because it rotted there. Just little things like that. It all like yes, you'll never ever get the top tier guys to share those 15 things that they do. There's little 15 things that they can't do you'll never figure them out. But the guys that are willing to get you close in this sport and try to teach you enough to be competitive, that is continuing to build the next generation of our sport. And it doesn't create this huge gap, and the competitive balance becomes better.
Well, content's key. and content is key to growth, right? And people, the right people creating the content can help the sport and also their brands grow even more. We haven't really got into that, but growing your brand needs to be something that people think about, and what that means, and sponsorship and all that stuff. Someday here soon, there is going to be sponsors, and there's going to be sponsors for drivers. Obviously, we were able to get somebody from the outside. It didn't last, but it's going to come back. Somebody's going to hit one of those. I've been in a lot of these conversations. I know it's easier to obtain as a driver than it is a promoter, and you're going to do it through content. Content is taking over now. Imagine I'm just like you, TJ. I'm a guy that maybe just got on the map, and that would be a pretty generous statement. I think there's a lot of people that are way ahead of me in terms of building and what they've achieved in the sport and whatnot. Imagine if you could get one of those guys to create content.
Oh
The
my.
Yeah, I mean, now they won't do it. Trust me, I've had a ton of a ton of conversations with these guys. They obviously haven't done it to this point, and it takes
We've
a
seen
lot of work.
Kinman do some stuff though with like his Blizzard Bash build and everything like that. I mean,
And he
I
was killing it, and then he kind of took a break. It's like,
well,
man,
if there's one thing that I know about podcasts and content, the moment you take a break, you're done. Content is so important to have consistency. Like I did a sports podcast with me and Patrick Uphold, just two guys. We love talking sports, and I said, why don't we hop on and just let other people listen to us talk sports? And we brought it on, called it the Man Cave, had a little bit of fun, went back and forth, played some games, talked to some people. We were getting like 3,500 people watching that video. And I was like, there's 3,500 people that are interested in listening to me talk sports. Maybe, maybe, maybe not. But then I'm getting messages like, hey, who should I start and sit for my fantasy team? I'm like, I don't know. Like, like I can give you my guess. Well, do you think this guy's going to get this? Because I'm going to make this bet on DraftKings. Content is important. Like this booger eater from Cumberland, Maryland, right here. The Stone Cold Stunner I hit with Devin Germain, an organic thing that I looked at Devin. I was like, you want to do something fun? He's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, let me hit you with a Stone Cold Stunner. And he's like, do you want to practice? I'm like, nah, we're good. I'm just going to kick you in the stomach and you just sell it. We hit that. Okay. Now, Mark Elliott's daughter put that up and it went viral. I mean, it went viral right away. I came back, and when I started becoming a content creator, I reposted it. Since I reposted it, it has 174,000 views. For me hitting Devin Germain with a stupid Stone Cold Stunner. The tilting video that I did and part 2 of it, part 1 has 209,000 views and part 2 has 187,000 views. Call me stupid, but those are some pretty good numbers for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Imagine what someone like that. We're not going to say names, but imagine one of the top 10 guys. Think of the top 10 guys in the sport right now. Bam, there they are. Imagine those 10 guys said, I'm going to build a whole car from the ground up with you. It would break social media.
It would break social media, and I don't think the guys realize that you can get paid from this stuff.
Absolutely.
Like you can make some money from this stuff. I know you have been chasing the marks of getting paid. We've got our pages monetized too, and yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you're making a killing by any means, but everything helps.
I can buy a cheeseburger every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say, listen, like we've all looked at people online and seen. You've ever seen a guy that sings and you're like, God, he's horrible, and he gets paid millions of dollars to do this, and then you see somebody else doing a video and you're like, God, he has no idea what he's talking about. I could totally do that. It was pretty cool the first time that I actually received, call it. I think my first check was like $6 or something like that. But I'm like, I just got paid for who I am. That's pretty cool. Like I was a professional for a moment, and yeah, we're not blown away by any means, but I've talked to some other social media content providers and things like that are making $30,000-$40,000 a month. Facebook put a cap out, I think, on $24,000 a month for content, and they go a 30-day content. The problem is that they keep switching what you're chasing. It's always something different. Like Reels get popular, everybody kills it on Reels. They're putting out too much money, and they're like, no, now it's ads on Reels, and now it's now it's just posts, and now it's videos and lives, and it's just really hard to continue to chase that rabbit.
The algorithm is certainly hard to hammer down exactly what they're looking for. We I can share something with you, but on that, I've got some information on that. But it changes. It changes so
It does.
frequently. It's so hard to hit it. But you know that you have to grow your following. Look, it does take some dedication to this. I understand why people haven't done this because I mean, if I didn't have someone helping me, Tyson has like killed it for me and helped me do all this. It would be very difficult for one person to do. So I get it.
Yeah.
I just wish we could get some more of that out there, and hopefully, continuing to do this type of stuff can motivate some others to do it too. You do get some hatred with it, so don't.
I,
I
Listen,
I don't know what to
some of
say.
the comments about my welds were really hurtful.
Like
Like,
I'm not the best welder at all either, but some of these guys are professional welders. I'm definitely not a
yeah.
professional welder. I don't. My welds don't break. I might have to weld them 10 times over, but they don't break. And I might have to turn the heat way up. But uh, you know,
Yeah, they sometimes them comments hurt a little bit.
yeah, we need to do some education on that because reading the comments does bother you. I know, like I know Kinman. It bothered him early on too, and I wasn't really aware because I wasn't creating content at that time of what he was actually feeling and experiencing. I know Scotty has kind of experienced some of this too. It's weird to me. I mean, this is kind of a rabbit hole that we're going to go down, but it's weird to me that in the sport of demolition derby, there's just so much hate like that, rather than support. And like a guy like Scotty, a guy like Kinman, that really put themselves out there, they do catch a lot of flack. What do you equate that to?
Um, it would sound really, man, it's hard to say what I want. I want to say jealousy because at the end of the day, there is a lot of that. Um, I'm not saying anyone's jealous of me. My God, I'm not saying that at all. But okay, here's a great way to say it. Type A personalities tend to rub non-type A personalities the wrong way in life in general. If you don't know what a type A personality is, you're staring at two of them. Okay, um, pretty eccentric, pretty out there, willing to speak their mind, like constantly. If there's a situation in a classroom where, hey, who wants to be the leader? We don't look around and been like, anybody else want to do it? We're like, I got it. Like we just kind of step up and we do that kind of thing, right or wrong. We come off, we can come off arrogant, we can come off bold, we can come off rude, we can come off in all these negative ways,
I've never
and
heard
really,
that. I've never heard those comments. I've never heard.
well, okay, that's your vice then, I guess. Hold on to that one.
Who going?
Um, but so like, um, I've been in so many groups in life where I've found myself become the leader of that group when I purposely try not to be. Like even like I'm passively aggressively trying to sit back and not be that leader of that group, somebody will always come in and be like, well, what do you think? And then I'll kind of like do this, and then all of a sudden I'm talking more than the president of the group, and then they're like, hey, well, let's go with this guy, you know what I mean? And it's the nature of who people are. Some people have the gift of gab. Some people have the gift of welding. Some people have the gift of just being a really quiet dude that can just absolutely wheel and rip a car. There's really quiet, weird, awkward people that can dissect an engine with their eyes closed and build it. I can't do that. I'd love to have that. They might love to have the ability to go out and stand in front of, 15,000 people and be able to speak. Sometimes that's horrifying for a lot of people. Sometimes it takes training for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, I think it's what everybody's comfortable with makes them comfortable. And anything that they're uncomfortable with, when they see it in front of them, it makes them uncomfortable. So I think that sometimes when like when Freebie gets on there, what's going on, Crash Fanatics or whatever his thing is, people are like, who's this goofy Jimmy Neutron looking kid? Like, who's this guy? He thinks he's hot stuff because he's talking to Pete Hansen and all this stuff and all that. Like, he's just having fun being a kid. He's a great builder. He's an amazing mind. If you ever have an actual conversation with him, and believe me, I was on the list of the rules and I got to hear all the questions. He is a brilliant mind, and what he's able to share and there's 2-minute clips that, I mean, how many times have you stopped a video and seen something that you're like, wait a minute, you caught your eye on it and you stop the video and you click on it, you zoom in and you're like, screenshot. Like, I've done it. I've done it 1,000 times. Like, these guys building these Blizzard Bash cars and everything like that, when it comes to all this pressuring and, the King cars and everything like that, all this pressure and stuff like that, they start posting. I start screenshotting. Maybe I shouldn't say that because maybe that'll deter people, but it's like sending a Snapchat. People are going to screenshot it, even though you say, don't share this, screenshot. But I think that in a lot of those situations, there can be so much learned if you just stop and realize that the person's not trying to be arrogant. The person's not trying to, act better than you. They're just taking time out of their day to share what's going on in the garage, what they're doing today, that, what they're placing. He did a thing on sky high steering columns. He did, some fun stuff. I'd never heard of him before until he said that. That's a potential sponsor for me. That's a potential, like, the official steering column of Deadman, Sky High. Like, I had no idea who they were until Scotty, Lil Freebie, did a video about it. And then that gives me the chance to look into it. Parts and stuff like that. I mean, I've done SSW steering work, Sarn Steering Works. I run their steering columns. I did a little video, an opening of the product. This is how it is. This is how it ships. Showed it. 10 orders. Boom. Like, you just don't know the impact that you can have. And I just think I encourage people to give it a try. And yeah, it is going to come with some of the bad. I think that we're negative people. We're not, but I think there's a lot of people that are very negative. They look for that. They need that drama. They need it in their lives, and they'll try to find any way to bring anybody that's down, that's happy, down, and you can't get rid of that. But I really believe that this sport is not 90% bad, 90% bad, 10% good. I really believe there's just a really, really, really bad 10%, and 90% of it really do want the sport to go somewhere and want it to be good. Maybe they don't know how to get it there. Maybe they don't know what their place is in that. But I don't feel like it's a 90 bad. I think it's a 10 bad. And I think that, when you start to really look into it and you see all the great people that support Demolition Derby, I think it's kind of clear. And then, I get, 1,000 comments of good stuff. And then I get this one guy that's pissed off. And we, as promoters, what do? We hang on the one comment. We hang on the 5 to 7 bad comments. And it's like, man, my show is that bad. And it's like, I had 5 bad comments, but I'm going to ignore the 1,000 good stuff that I got in there.
It's so easy to do, and it's an education that I think all of us have to go through when we're going down this path. I have it's bothered me, it's bothered you. All we can do is, I think, pay it forward and educate the next generation that, hey, it's not that we shouldn't do these things; it's that we need to educate you what comes along with those things. And
can I interrupt you for 1 second? I just want to interrupt you because this is such a good moment right now, right here. Everybody knows you take a lot of flack for what you say. Right now, you continue to use the word educate. Okay. I've heard people say this. This is just off the cuff. I'm sorry if I'm getting off the cuff here. I've heard people say, when he says the word educate, I feel like he's calling me stupid. And I'm like, no, he's not calling you stupid. What he's trying to say is that we got to teach everybody everything. We got to get all the information out there so everybody can truly understand what's going on. Where's the sport at? What we're trying to do, like, educate people on this. But my question is to you is, if you had to replace the word educate people, what would you want that word to be? Like, give him a different word. You can't. So that's why we use the word educate. That's why he's using the word educate. It's not a negative thing. It's not thing. It's just that's the right word for the situation. It just again, it comes off. Sometimes it can come off a little like, "Hey, you're stupid. You need to be educated." He's not saying you don't know how to spell, you know. Like he's just saying like maybe some of you need to take the time to look into this a little bit deeper because there's a lot here. There's a rabbit hole down here, and if you travel down this rabbit hole, you might like what you see, and you might find yourself as being a part of something that transitions the sport in a different direction. Educate yourself on it. You don't know how to weld? Educate yourself on it. It's not calling you stupid. Educate yourself on it. So I understand what you're saying for educate, but I've heard that before, and I wanted to like kind of take this time to say, what other word do you want to use if the word's not educate?
I've never appreciate you saying that. I've never knew that people had a problem with that. Education is like the key to everything. So if you don't know anything, you got to educate yourself on it. I just use it. I am actually a former teacher, so I was a teacher for 5 years, and maybe a lot of people don't know that, but education is like key. Whether it's in the classroom or it's in the garage or whatnot. They say you need to like 10,000 hours to be an expert on something. I would say that, A, that's a lot of time for one, but that's a lot of education. And when we've kind of dove into the derby world and trying to progress it and whatnot, I would say we are closer to becoming that expert, right? As all the work that we put in the last 5 years, than some people. Okay, and we're educating people on what we found. With the simple conversation of people never understood why there was 3 hour features. Okay, why is there a 3 hour feature? And it's to me, it was pretty simple once I identified it. It wasn't simple at the beginning because I found the same thing. Well, you dangle this carrot out there of big money and you say the last car went or the last car running gets this big money. There's no incentive, right? To the big incentive is to be the last car running. There's no other incentive really out there. Obviously, this is why the reapers exist. This is why you reward those guys that push the pace and all this stuff. And then obviously we created the format to make sure that that doesn't happen. But like that happens through education. Like there's still shows out there that have 3 hour features, and they wonder, I don't know why I'm having a 3 hour feature. Well, you put 55 cars on the track and you put 12,000 to win. What do you think you're going to have? I'm never going to hit the gas pedal if I'm actually trying to win that show. So you've got to change that. Well, how does that happen? It happens through education. You got to talk. You got to you and the only way, TJ, that things can get figured out is through talking, in my opinion. We may not agree on a lot of things, and not just me and you personally, but like just in general, any conversation that you have. But I need to figure out why we don't agree. I want to figure out what's your perspective, and then tell you my perspective, and then kind of get what is the best of both worlds, because you're trying to get to an end point. And if you're not, if you're trying to get to an end point, you need to be able to decipher the best points from both people, and then get there, and then kind of put the egos aside. You know.
Well, I mean, I've been a huge advocate of just listening. Um, I think as promoters, we have to understand what the drivers want, the fans want. Whether you want to give it to them, that's the decision you make based on your production, your promotion company, whatever it is. But listening is how I've gotten to where we are because I took a chance and Frankie Guy from Hardcore was kind of like a little bit of a mentor for me and trying to explain to me like you know you maybe cool your horses a little bit because I didn't shut up for 6 months straight. I mean, I was exhausted. I was running out of things to say about Buried Alive 1, and he finally pulled me aside and he's like, "You're gonna have a heart attack if you don't calm down." And he was like, "You are so amped up," and it was cool because I mean, I was really amped up about it. It was legit. It was real. It was emotional. But like, I got to a point where there was 2 weeks left, and I looked at Kayla and I was like, "I don't have anything left to say." And he was right. He was 100% right. So now what we do is we open up our shows a little bit later. And we start the hype train just about halfway through registration to really drive it home. And what we're seeing from that is we're getting higher numbers that show up versus just registration numbers. Because you can get 700 cars to register for your show. And believe me, we'll take it. We will 100% take it. But we advertise a show to put on in front of our fans. And if we advertise that there's going to be 450 cars on the track and we only put 200 out there, that the fans can go, well, this is not what I paid for. I paid to see 400. Like you said 450, I'd give you 375. But 200, TJ, they're not going to let that fly. So I've had to learn that. I listened to Steve. So I opened with Iron City Nationals. I said, like what is your best advice? I've talked to a lot of other promoters and I've talked to a lot of drivers. I mean, there's very boisterous drivers. If you ask a driver their opinion about what you're doing, they will tell you. Sometimes you will like it. Sometimes it will piss you off. But if you can listen and hear what they're saying, sometimes somebody will say something that really pisses me off. Like, I cannot believe that they said it. But instead of getting mad about it, I'm like, well, can you explain that to me? I would say 50% of the time, there's some sort of disconnect with communication where they didn't understand what I was trying to do, or maybe I just didn't understand what they wanted. Like maybe they wanted something with a rule set and I went this direction and I'm like, I gave it to you. And you're like, no, that's not what I wanted. Okay, well, I misunderstood that. What do you guys want? The only way to get better is to listen. And I've done a lot of listening. And I think that I will always do a lot of listening because I don't got this down, man. We're 3 years in, full 3 years in. We are still a baby in this sport. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to get better at. And I just want to keep being a sponge and absorbing every little. If I can learn something from Triple D, from Hardcore, from Smash It, from Ultimate, whatever promotion company is, there's bits and pieces of good everywhere. If I can take that and build my empire or whatever we want to call it, that's a good thing. I mean, that's learning and that's getting yourself educated, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, having those conversations and with those people is good. Educated conversations go a long way, because when you start to get when you start to understand where people are coming from and why they're coming from there, uh, it helps everybody out, right? I shared a thing with you about Kevin Harvick. You got a chance to watch that?
Absolutely, man.
I think I
Love
can
Kevin.
pull it up.
Yeah, huge shout out to Kevin Harvick, KHI, Stewart Hot Racing, Richard Childress Racing for being a part of his career. I've got to meet Richard Childress. I've got to thank Richard Childress for everything that he's done. I've got to talk to Kevin Harvick multiple times in person. Just great dude. I hate that he's leaving NASCAR. He's leaving NASCAR because NASCAR sucks. Just if anybody's wondering why Kevin Harvick's leaving, is because he's tired of what NASCAR's become. He's tried to help get it in the right way, but they've just gone to a different demographic, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not racing anymore. That's why he's leaving, because it's not the racers that really win anymore. It's who can hold it wide open and turn left. But that's just my opinion.
You're a NASCAR hater.
I'm not yeah, I am. I got to be honest with you. I love the sport. I love when they went to the double file restart, I was like, yes, finally. Because that single file restart crap was terrible. Like, when they gave you a way to get your lap back without having to race the leader that you were never faster than ever. Like, when they gave you a different way to do that, like the wave around, all that stuff, that was all good. It was really nice. But then they were like, let's look at, it's like DirecTV. They offer the Sunday ticket to every single new customer for free, but if you want it, you got to pay $450 for it. They tried to reach out to a demographic that they never had, never are going to get, but they want it because they don't have it. It's like a girl that's like, oh, this guy, he's a star quarterback. I got to have him. You don't want him because he's just going to dump you and he's going to cheat on you. But yeah, keep chasing the rabbit. Keep going after it. Well, they went out and they chased this demographic and they're like, hey, let's do a road course. Now let's do 4 road courses. Well, nobody likes the cookie cutter tracks because every time they go to the cookie cutter tracks, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick win it. Okay, well, that's because they're the best racers. You didn't have a problem with the cookie cutter tracks when Jimmy Johnson won every single half mile that was sponsored by Lowe's, did you? I'm on my soapbox now, Dustin. I'm standing on this one. Okay, you turn around and and you say, okay, well, now let's take Charlotte and let's turn it into a road course. Well, let's take Daytona and let's run it into a road course. Let's take the Brickyard 400, one of the most iconic things in the sport, and you turn it into a road course and completely ruin it. Like, do they even race on the bricks anymore? Like, come on. And then you're like, well, you know what would be really cool? Let's do a one-lane racetrack in the middle of downtown Chicago where nobody can pass. Everybody can just pile into each other. There'll be massive wrecks. People will love it. But you know what? You'll be able to see maybe the Michael Jordan statue in the background. That'd be really cool for everybody. Terrible race. Worst race I've ever seen in my life. And then we're like, oh, by the way, now we're going to crown a champion by doing this. Like, because the best driver will find a way to win. No, Ryan Blaney's not the best driver in NASCAR. He's not.
Well, hey, I'm not going to argue with you on any of that. I will say that like everybody makes mistakes as an organization. They definitely have made some mistakes. But you know, one thing that they've done is they're worth more this year than they were last year.
This is
They're
true.
always continuing. They are growing the demographic. Now they are losing the base. Just obviously, it hurts when Kevin Harvick leaves, when the junior leaves. The Earnhardt name no longer is even really relevant in Cup racing. Now Junior's going to get a team here soon because they need to bring that back. But
and so will Kevin. Kevin will bring back KHI for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's too engraved, and he's got a son, right? Kevin's got a son that races.
Yep, Keelan's been racing since he was 4. He's pretty good. He'll do a good job. I don't know if he'll ever be in NASCAR, but Kevin's got the name and the sponsorship with Bad Boy Buggies, with Hunt Brothers, with Bush, with I mean, sponsors for days. Ream, everything that he's got, Reese's. I mean, the guy's got everything. So his money's going to go a long way in the sport. He's actually going to be in the booth next year, which is going to be great because I'm so tired of listening to Jeff Burton squeal, and Dale Jr. is awful. Those two are absolutely.
Get out of here!
Come on!
Here
comes a car down here. There's another accident. No. Oh my gosh!
Dale
They're
bad, dude. Tune in. You're not going to get that one on me.
So bad. Oh my gosh! I bet you thought he was good on anything other than a super speedway too, right?
Sure he was.
Oh my god! Come on, bro.
I mean, come on. He won 6 races in 2006.
Was that the year that they did like?
He should have won the championship. It was the first year that they changed the points. He would have won the championship if they wouldn't have changed the points.
Listen, he wouldn't have won the points if they would have given you an extra 500 points for every 8 you had in your number. Listen, he is not a wheelman when it comes to the. I'm sorry, man. I'll stand up on that one. I love Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Junior is absolutely a wheelman. He's won like 28 races.
28 races.
You win 28 races in NASCAR.
Jeff Gordon won 13 in 1 year.
Obviously, Jeff
Gordon. Junior's career from 2000.
He's an icon. I mean, he's like one of the top 5 racers of all time. Junior was not that, but Junior was a good racer.
Listen, so what kills me, and I hope we never miss something like this in our sport for Demolition Derby. I have been saying this for years. Safety was improved after Dale died with Hans device, the Newman bar after the Newman accident. I mean, all these great safety things. They started to go the wrong direction when they started saying we cannot allow the tire to wear as hard as it's wearing because it's causing right front tires to go down. It's causing 45-degree angle, 190 mile an hour right into the wall hits. Even though we got safer barriers, we cannot risk that. Goodyear's like, hey, listen, like, I don't know if this conversation is really going on, but Goodyear's like, our insurance isn't going to cover this kind of, we got to make a better tire so it doesn't happen. Well, then the tires stop falling off. Listen, when you can run 70 laps on a set of Goodyear tires and only change 2 tires to beat the guy out that changed 4, tires don't matter anymore. So tires stop slipping and sliding, lap times don't fall off. Like, I like to see tires that fall off, a good second and a half over a 50-lap run, because you have to save tires. You have to save brakes. I mean, remember back in the day when you actually had to save your brakes, like at Martinsville, Remember in the day where you had to like be careful how much you heated up the right rear tires so that you weren't slipping and sliding all over the place at Rockingham? Like those things are gone from NASCAR. Now I did see that they were testing a new tire that was taller treaded, and it was wide. It was wide and taller treaded, so that it would allow for more wear and slipping around like the old dirt style was, but you still didn't run the risk of it, I'm sorry, cording out and ripping. I would love to see them go to a softer tire and get the competitive nature back. And comers and goers, you remember that when there would be a guy that get out to a 5 second lead, guy would fall from sixth all the way back to 18th, and all of a sudden they meet back in the middle.
Yeah,
I
but
hate.
what you had back then though is you had like the Dale Jarrett's. Like I remember when Dale Jarrett beat everybody at like Michigan from like by like 50 seconds. And you had like the Richard Petty's and early Earnhardt career. You would have that stuff. Junior, I know you're a Junior hater, so you don't
I'm
listen
not a
to
junior hater.
you don't listen to his podcast, but he
I
had
actually do.
did you listen to the 79 tribute to Senior in Senior's rookie year?
No, I've
You
listened
don't, you
to.
freaking Junior hater, dude. You
Listen,
ain't
I've listened to like 3 of his podcasts. 90% of the time he's talking about Denny Hamlin, like and his attitude and stuff like that. Like all 3 that I've tuned in so far, I will have to give it a listen because I actually have to give him credit. I heard it's absolutely awesome.
it's awesome. So they go back through the 79 season, and actually I think it goes into like the 80 season. But Dale Earnhardt and they have all this stuff or whatever. But they're running away from the field back then. It's hard to sell that. So NASCAR they sell the action, they sell the passes. So I understand why things have changed. They want to jumble you up. They want to keep as many people on the lead lap. Look, it's simple business. If Ryan Blaney in the Menards car is a lap down every other week, it's a problem, right? It's a problem for money. It's a problem for sponsorship. So they've got all kinds of things in the back room that they got to deal with. Besides that, so I understand that what you're saying, but also, I mean, I think they're making changes for other reasons rather than just the racing.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
And there's, I mean, I grew up in the Winston Cup days. I remember, I remember if you went and turned in, 4 or 5, empty cartons of cigarettes at the Winston trailer, you got like a free T-shirt. I remember those days. My dad smoked Winston cigarettes. So like I go from that to where, and it wasn't fun. 100%, it was not fun. I don't have not a Dale Jr., a Dale Earnhardt Sr. 100%.
no, Dale Jr. probably too.
I'll have to tell you that story, but I hated watching. There was a year I think Gordon had wrapped up the championship with like 3 races to go. Like I think it was like 165 points was the most you could get in a race at that time, or 175, and I think he was like 460 ahead. And it was like, wow, if Jeff Gordon finishes in the top 13 today, he automatically wraps up the title. I'm like, man, that kind of sucks, Like now, flash forward to who is the real champion? Okay, so like we look at the chase and how it's been done. If you go back to real numbers based on where they finished, based on just strict points, Kevin Harvick has 3 championships.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. has one.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. has one, so anybody can win one, right?
No, that terrible race car driver has one,
right? But so like, if you go back to that, it's like, well, which one did you want? Did you want when Kevin won? I think it was 11 races that year or 9 races that one year. Did you really want him to win the championship by 350 points as a fan? Yeah, if you're a Harvick fan, yeah. But if you're a real race fan and you want to see it come down to that end, I do like the fact that other than this year, the winner of the championship had to win the race to win it. So, I mean, it does create that, and it creates that one of the things that you like to do with like your press conferences. Like it creates that 1 week where all the focus is on these 4 teams. All the focus is on these 4 sponsors because everything that sponsor had in every moment leading up to that race all pays off when they're one of only 4 sponsors that are truly getting any recognition at all for an entire week. I mean, like, was Stanley on the car? Was it, or was Menards was on the car? Menards was on the car. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what a Menards was until 2 years ago. I swear to God, I had no idea what a Menards was because we have Lowe's, Cabela's, Home Depot, that kind of stuff here. We have like Dunham's and stuff. It wasn't until I started traveling out into Ohio that I was like, what's a Menards? I went to my first Menards last year with Jacob Gilliam, and I walked around. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Like this was cool. I just thought it was Paul Menard's dad owned a race team or something like that. And he was like, I'm going to put my name on the side of a car. It was crazy. So like, that's what we talk about in our sport is how can we get Menards to say, man, I got to be a part of this, this press conference or this, this pregame to Triple D's crowning of the championship, or the dead man feature or the final confrontation or Iron City Nationals. Like, how can we get them in there? And it's given them the chance to really be seen and giving them something that they can actually get back in return. And that's the hard part, is trying to figure out how we can guarantee anything back in return for these people to make their investment into our sport. Because if I sponsor Dustin Woods as Deadman next year for call it Super Stock at Iron City, I could probably drop you $2,000 and you'd be like, wow, that's really cool, man. I'll put a nice size sticker, Deadman, on the side of the car. Appreciate that. That's going to get me my gas out. It's going to get my hotel. It's going to do pretty good. When we are looking for our big investor, we're not asking for $2,000.
Well, and I don't even know if you gave me $2,000, because I get asked to be sponsored all the time. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I could give you $2,000 worth of worth. I guess the worth is not. It's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze, and that's where we as a sport have to understand that if someone's going to come and invest with us, we've got to make them money, and it's got to be. This is a trade off, and
So
that has to happen.
So look at what the sponsor gets in NASCAR. Okay, so like this is what I would say. Okay, so Dustin, you're gonna make 10 videos leading up, like you did for your car building the thing. In those 10 videos, I would like to have my Deadman sticker on the wall in your garage while you're talking about a thing, and behind, like you see like on my screen right now. So now my image is there. I'd like a ticker to come across the bottom of the screen and said deadmanderby.com, shop here for apparel, blah, 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 blah. I'd like you to be wearing a Deadman hat and a Deadman t-shirt. When you show up to the track, I'd like your car already to either be painted with a Deadman sticker on it, or I would like it to immediately have one on as soon as it passes inspection. I want that car front and center in one of the best parking spots that everybody that comes in those pits to be able to see the Deadman is on the side of the car. When you go out there, I want to make sure all mud's clear from the car. So when you pull into the track and when Serena Brandt takes her pictures, Stephanie Blinker takes her pictures, boom, right there. Every picture that you're in has Deadman on the side of the car. When you get out of the car after you win your heat, I want you to immediately put that Deadman hat on with your Deadman shirt already on there, long sleeve shirt, whatever you got. And I want you to look at the camera and say, we're taking the Deadman Chevrolet, or the Deadman Roundback wagon. We're taking it to the feature later tonight. Check us out. There's going to be updates on deadmanderby.com. Go check it, to see how we're doing on things. We're going to post some videos about us working on the car, see what we're doing overnight, and we'll check back with you in the morning. You win that Derby, first thing you do, put it on, blah, blah, blah. You say, I want to give a huge shout out to Deadman Derby. Couldn't have been here without them. They got me here, blah, 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 blah. Then you go to your family and God. That's what a sponsor wants. But who's going to do that? Everybody gets out of the car. Right now, we get out of the car as drivers and we're like, car ran real good.
If you can even get an interview.
Yeah.
If you can even get an interview with the driver, they definitely, the first things that they're saying is not sponsors. Now, I will point out that JT Hildebrand last year, who won our King class, was awesome. He had Pitter Nation as a sponsor, and he was like just beating the drum of Pitter Nation, which is what they wanted. I'm sure they were happy. He was wearing the t-shirt, the whole 9 yards. Like, that was the stage for them. But TJ, who is going to do that? Who understands that bigger picture right now in the Derby world?
So the funny thing you ask is I've been pushing for C4 energy drink for a really long time. I've made no bones about it. I love the product. And listen, if there's anything that I would ever hate is to endorse a product I don't like. Like, I'm not a huge Pepsi guy. I don't really like it. I prefer Coke. If they pay me the right amount of money, I like cherry Pepsi. Like, I enjoy that. I just wouldn't want to have to drink Mountain Dew. Like, I wouldn't want to have to drink, something I don't like. So I've been pushing for that. So I've been on, I think 3 different times I've been on Derby Nation where I immediately grab a C4 can out and act like I'm drinking it while the camera's on me, and I point to the can like, "What's up?" Like this is the stuff right here. And I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. In the last year, I post videos of C4 energy drink, me drinking one, trying this new flavor out, like blah blah blah. I will have people I've never met before, never talked to one time, will message me and be like, "Dude, no joke, that pink Starburst C4 is legit. That's amazing." So I'm like, I want these people to send letters and say the only reason I bought a C4 was because TJ McCullough did a video, I saw it, and blah blah blah. And if I can get enough of those videos, maybe they'll take a chance on me. Because I'm all about it. I'll pop out there and take a Gatorade bath. I'll take a I'll eat a McDouble right out of the car. Like if McDonald's wants to give me some money, you know what I
Well,
mean?
we've got to understand that, and that's the transition between, in my opinion, and is from a hobby to a sport. Is when you can start to get people to start to pay for your stuff. It's more than just a hobby. You're now able to do this, and you're not funding it through your own bank account. So we've got to transition. And how do you do that? You have these conversations. It's the education piece that we have to. Hey, look, this is how we do this. I mean, for 20 years, I've heard, oh man, I would, Derbian's going to get sponsored, blah, 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 or it's never going to get there, whatever people say, right? Like, well, it hasn't happened yet. So there's something that we're not doing in Demolition Derby that is not appealing to sponsors. Like that's just the facts. Okay. There's 30, 40 years of evidence of that. So we've got to educate ourselves first. And then that way we can get out to the people in the Derby world and say, hey, look, this is what I'm hearing from these different sponsors. Boxo Tools is someone that I was in a meeting with, and I was in a meeting with their head marketing guy and Boxo Tools, and he's like, "Hey, look, here's an affiliate link. Share this out. If you can get some people to buy some products and take care of us, we'll certainly take a look in the Derby world." Look, I've gotten people to click the link. I've got a couple hundred clicks on the link. Nobody's bought anything because you can track it all. Everything is tracked in that world. And that's what you've got to understand. And like, I know most people are like, oh, Boxo Tools, like it's a great tool, but it's expensive. Oh, okay. Well, how do you think they're going to have the money to sponsor us? How do you think they're going to why do you think they're willing to take a look into our sport? Like, let's say, Harbor Freight tools. Everybody's got Harbor Freight tools in their chest box, right? Everybody has some type of Harbor Freight tooling. What I will tell you is that Harbor Freight will never, ever, ever get in Demolition Derby or anything like it. And the reason being is because that's not their business model. Their business model is to sell the cheapest tools possible. Therefore, they don't have the budget to go out and invest in people in the motorsports world. Boxo Tools sells tools on a higher budget. They will go out and invest in these people. Does that make sense? So, Snap On, for example, you're not going to see Snap On get into the Demolition Derby world. It's not their business model. Their business model is to sell to the mechanic down the street. And how do you know that? Well, because they drive these big box trucks around to check up on their demographic. Those big box trucks don't come to demolition derbies. Some of these guys might have jobs where they come to, but their demographic. So we have to understand how these guys structure their business and what they're willing to do. So when I throw something out there like Boxo, it's pretty damn important because they're willing to take a look at our sport. Um, that's why I'm throwing that out there. And I'm going out of my way to make sure that I'm having these conversations. Now we've got to get the sport to move in that direction because you said it. If we don't create a healthy relationship with them or with a potential sponsor and give them value and they give us value, it's never going to work.
Yeah, and Kyle's over here making a couple points about some things, and one of the things, like if someone like a Kyle Baker is willing to be, let's call it, okay, so I use the word ambassador for sport. Don't take that as like this is the leader of our sport, but like if you go to I've gone to C4 Energy to sell your core, and I said I would like to be an ambassador for this. So an ambassador is basically somebody that hops in and becomes a not a poster boy, but somebody that pushes the product. If Kyle Baker was like, hey, I'm going to push, Dead Man, like I'm going to continue to um, I'm going to wear a Dead Man shirt everywhere I go. Anytime that I have a chance to talk about Dead Man, I'm going to talk about Dead Man. I'm going to hang a thing in my garage. Anytime that somebody comes over and works on a car in my garage, they'll see it. They'll talk about it. Hey, this is where I get my parts from. This manufacturer, Jeffy's Fat Farm, Smith Metal Works, B&B Derby parts. I'm just trying to think of some guys that were at my show. Just some of our great parts vendors out there, Brian's Machine Shop, Cannonball, Indy CNC, all these people. Like if you push that product, then Kyle, you become a value to our sport because you're an ambassador of that sport. So if you're willing to take lead in that, whenever this does happen, where if this ends up becoming a thing, then you're gonna need more than just Kyle Baker, more than just Dustin Woods, TJ McCullough. You're going to need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people out there that are willing to push everything from the top of the line product that everybody wants to do to, I mean, look at Travis Kelce. He's online right now. He's all over the place for like the COVID vaccine shots. I don't know if he's into that, believes in any of that or whatever, but I'm sure he's getting paid a lot of money to do it. So he pushes that agenda. He pushes that for them. You go to somebody that, maybe Dale Jr. didn't like Budweiser at first, but I'm sure he pushed a lot of Budweiser out the door, so like we're going to need that in our sport. So if we're willing, I do have to address the main question that's in the chat, because I'll be honest with you, I had private chat on and I wasn't listening to any of the comments.
You can see the comments. I didn't know that you could see the comments.
Yes.
I thought I was keep.
Oh, you thought they could just make fun of me behind my back, huh?
No, I kept pulling them up on the screen like as they come up because I never knew that you could see the comments. So sorry.
So anytime you're in the chat, you can see the comments, but it's always nice to pull up somebody's comment and do that, because it gives that kind of that front and center, because it makes it like a discussion point, especially if somebody's watching this with the subtitles and without sound at work. But a lot of questions about me possibly running the King. I had talked about running the King that first year. I make no bones about it. I was all about it. I had a Cadillac. I'm like, let's do this. And I just got scared. Like I just basically didn't think that I had what it took to run against some of those guys, and I just wasn't ready for it. And then you're like, hey, you coming? And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying. I got the caddy stripped, and I did. I had the Cadillac stripped and everything like that. And I'd say we were probably about a month and a half out from the show. And if anybody knows me, if I haven't started on the car, it doesn't mean I'm not coming. like a month and a half for a King car is about all I'll spend on it. And I got to the point where I was just like, mentally, I don't think that I'm ready for this. I don't think that, as a driver, I'm ready yet. I need more time behind the wheel, and I backed out. I do not necessarily feel that I'm on the level with all those guys, but I do feel like I'm at the point in my career where it's time to find out. And that's the difference. I feel like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever, I was like, I'm not ready. I don't think I'm ready. I don't know that I'm ready, so I'm not ready. I feel like right now, I wouldn't be behind the wheel of a car if I didn't feel like I could drive. I consider myself a mid-tier guy. I've seen some mid-tier guys come out and do very well out there. I don't know what the future holds for me, whether or not I will get absolutely blown away in the heat and not have enough to even go back to the Consi. I don't know if I got to go the long way. Maybe I have a respectful run, but I do think that I'm going to try to put respect on my name this year, and I am going to do everything that I possibly can to become the 2024 King of Ohio.
Well, I guess that answers that question. I like what you said there, and to me, it's like I'm kind of like giggling inside, because what I have tried to create here in my team at Triple D has tried to create is this is the place to be if you think you're the baddest dude on the planet. And what you just described there was impromptu and not something that I coached you up on or anything. And you said, hey, look, I think I'm ready to challenge myself and come to that level. So I think that's really cool to hear, because that's what we've tried to create. And I wish you the best of luck, in your 2024 endeavor. I've got some unfinished business myself over there in PA, and I'm going to win that damn show. And I'm telling you that right now. I had every intent to win last year, and I'm going to spend more than 2 weeks on a car that isn't already built. So we will bring something that will turn some heads in 2024 back to PA. So I'm going to spend some time on that car. Not that the wagon didn't have enough to win, but it just a little bit of peace in mind, a little bit of preparation. Like I'm, I got some unfinished business over there.
So one of the things that like if there's one thing that I'm known for in the Derby world, and I'm not saying I'm known for anything, but if there's one thing, it's TJ hasn't started a car in the Derbies in 5 days. Like the car is not even stripped yet, and I show up and I win. Um, I've said I don't know. It's not a one man job. There's a group of people that help and come and help me get that done. My dad's a big part of that. I have a great group of friends that come in and help. But when it comes to like putting the welder to the car, that's all me, 100% all me. All the positioning and everything on the cars is all me. And I call them like the best group of laborers that anybody could ask for because they'll do anything for you, and I appreciate them to death. But this type of car has never come out of my garage. I built a turn back the clock car for Bash, and honestly, it wasn't really a turn back the clock car. It just had a really cool cage in it. Um, but I think that it would be really cool to challenge myself to the level of showing up and looking the part. And I've never done that before. I've never pulled in with the best trunk. I've never pulled in with the cleanest cage, and I've never pulled in and won a derby just by the look of the car. You know what I mean by that. And I would really like to. I'd really like to take a shot at that. I'd really like to challenge myself to see how good of a builder I can be when I really put my mind to it.
Well, and that's what this the format and everything that we're doing at the King is. I mean, it's mono a mono a mono, and if you're the best of that group of three, we'll see you in the feature, and hopefully there'll be 50K on the line. We think that it's going to sell out this year. We're over 40 entries, so I mean, we're well on our way, to getting there. So that's pretty cool. And I'm happy. I'm thrilled to hear that you're coming to challenge yourself, and hopefully, you can do some of that the content creation leading up to it and keep us informed on what you're doing and what you're
I
choosing. Don't
100%
play the
will.
secret game, you know.
I don't care. Like, I somebody told me something that I known like 4 years ago, last year on a car, and I told somebody else, and I was like, "Yeah, here, this is the part number," and I gave him the part number, and I'm like, "The part number is literally on the part, like you can see it, like it's common knowledge. If you go out and snap a picture of it, you got the part number, like it's right there." And we put our cars right out in the center of everything for thousands and thousands of drivers and fans to go right by. And we're like, no, nobody can know what A arms I run on my car. Like, stop it, you know, like knock it off. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like, come on. And I got screamed at over it, and I was like, really? Like, because you're the only person in the country that knows that part number. I knew it 6 years ago before I even started running them, and that just gets frustrating sometimes. But no, I will 100% share. I mean, here's a great example. I have a couple guys back home, Butter, um, Eliminator, Big Z, Instigator, Stephen Martin. They all ran our limited weld class this at Buried Alive prior to Deadman becoming a thing. These guys were local county fair chain and bang guys. Period. They knew nothing, and none of them would ever be like mad at me for saying that. They were exactly where I was, 6, 7 years ago. Knew nothing. I couldn't believe I even got a car on the track. Um, and now they're running. If you want to call Deadman one of the top 10 derbies in the country, whatever you want to call it, you want to call it, an elite event or whatever. They're running an elite event for a top 10 promoter in the country, and they're doing well. Butters won a dead stock event at our show at Buried Alive. I mean, like, so like that's because I learned from this guy, and then I took that and taught this guy, and then that guy's taught this guy. It's paying it forward, and it's teaching, because somebody, Dominic Fabry was the first person. Him and Shane Moss were the first two that ever took me and said, "Here, you got to start learning. You got to start listening." And I did. And one of DJ's favorite things he says about me is that you listen, you learn, and I don't have to tell you again. And I always said, if you're willing to come in the garage, I'll do it for you one time. I'll show you how to do it. Second time, you're going to put your hands on it. You're going to ask me questions on how to do it. After you do it the second time, you're still going to have questions. You're going to go home. You're going to do it in your car alone. You are more than welcome to call me and ask me questions. By the third time doing it, I expect you can be independent with it. If you're doing that, I'll teach you anything, because you're willing to learn. You're willing to try it on your own. I'll always answer questions. Sometimes I forget. I had to call Jeffy from Jeffy's Fab Farm last year, because I'm laying underneath the car at 11 o'clock at night on a 12-hour day, and I can't figure out why my shifter won't go on. And he goes, "Dude, just turn it around. It's backwards." like, you have a brain fart every once in a while. So I still ask questions, and if you're willing to learn, I'm always willing to teach. So if I throw something up there and it's wrong and you don't like it, make a comment on it. I don't care. If you love it, if you want to ask me, hey, how'd you do this? I'll be happy to answer it. I'll answer anything.
TJ, do you got a little bit of time yet? I don't want to go too
No,
long.
you're good.
Okay. I wanted to go back here just a little bit and touch on the sponsorship stuff. We kind of got that question kind of took over. And I think we almost need to do another podcast on the sponsorship stuff. But Tyson Mobley of Under the Table Graphics, he does some sponsorship signs. I run them on my car. And this is a great way for those guys that are getting sponsors to showcase their sponsors without damaging the car. Like, I've done wraps for people. I've seen wraps. I've had wraps on my cars, but they always get torn off. These signs right here, they're up on the roof. They're right next to your roof sign, and you're able to display your sponsors throughout the event. So if you guys haven't seen that, check out my cars. I have them on mine. I think some other people are starting to do the same thing. And that's kind of hints towards Kyle Baker's comment. Look, in all reality, Kyle, we're not. When you go ask somebody for $100 and to sponsor your thing, you think that you're not really asking for much, but what you're not really doing is you're not providing value for them. You're not even providing $100 of value. So if I go down the street and I ask the lawn care company for $100 to be on the side of my car, they get hit up all the time. Okay, for one. And then the next thing, oh, you're running a Derby in PA. How is that $100 going to benefit my lawn care company in Columbus, Ohio? The reality is it's not. And that's what we've got to talk about and educate our audience is you have to provide some value. For example, the Jegs, the whole thing with Jegs. People could have handled that different ways when I got Jegs right into the demolition derby world. How it was handled was evident, and if anyone was to do a case study on why big sponsors won't come into our sport, well, it's because we didn't provide any value to Jegs in the sport. I don't want to say most, but there was enough hatred in the sport or enough Summit lovers or this and that there wasn't value. We weren't providing value for them. So it wasn't worth their investment, in our sport, or a deeper investment, until we get to a point where we understand that maybe it's Summit that comes in. Well, if Summit comes in and it doesn't really matter who it's with, then we all need to be Summit fans overnight. Okay, you need to order all your shit from Summit. You need to tell them that you're a demolition derby driver, and TJ McCullough got Summit Racing to sponsor him, and I'm the biggest Summit fan you ever seen in your life. Because what it's going to do is it's going to show them that they need to double down in our sport. These types of things we need to take advantage of, because when Jegs puts money or Summit puts money into our sport and realizes there's some value, and these people actually they get it rather than just being the haters, right? Somebody else is going to see value in the sport too. Boxo Tools or Monster Monster Energy or someone like that, they're going to say, hey, this demographic gets it. Right now, I see a demographic that still doesn't quite get it and still doesn't quite understand that. And it's part of the reason why we haven't been able to get that big sponsor. Does that make sense, TJ?
It does, because like I constantly go back and forth, and I'm like, man, if I could just get to sit down with C4 Energy Drink and sit down with that CEO and get that meeting and say, listen, here's all the messages I have. Here's all the people that have seen me. Like, I can go through and I can show you a total of 50,000 views, and I'm not trying to sell your product. Like, I don't have it in my hand. I'm not wearing a C4 shirt. Like, I'm not wearing a C Cellucor to the gym, tank top or anything like that. Like, I'm willing to do a whole body transformation. Like, I know that I can pack on 30 pounds of muscle in 2 months. I know that I can do it. I've done it before. I can drop 20 pounds in a heartbeat. I already take Cellucor products, but I'm not going to post about it because they're not investing in me. But we have to invest in them, and they have to see the mutual benefit. So to me, I'm like, I'll sit down. I'll tell you right now, I'll do a whole body transformation, give all the credit to C4 and everything like that. I'll everywhere I go, I'll have a C4 energy drink in my hand. Listen, all you gotta do is just follow me around every morning, because I already have one. Like, I'm already living life. I'm already living their product, and I'm like, I can sell your product. I can say, I can get these guys to understand, when you wake up in the morning from a tough day's work, after in the garage until 3 o'clock in the morning, you have no energy, but you got to put in that 9 to 5. Grab yourself a Cellucor C4 energy drink, because I'm telling you, that's what I do every single morning, and I can get through my entire day. Boom, sold. I'll sell 30,000. You get the top elite driver in our sport to do it. Now all of a sudden, I mean, think about how many people know about read cases now because of somebody. Think about how many people know about this part because of somebody.
Well,
Like,
I want to comment on that just a little bit. So I don't this that's kind of what the problem I'm seeing though in the sport, TJ, is if you were to get C4 Energy, I'm not sure that a lot of people, because everything's tracked through affiliate marketing, so they have all these websites and stuff. Like, it's really hard as an energy drink. So energy drinks are really hard, and what I've learned chasing something similar to this, with the C4's competition, is that you can't track. So they want ROI, right? And then
right.
that's called return on investment.
Yep.
Well, in these energy drinks, they don't know what ROI they're actually getting. I I know this from the CFO of Monster Energy. Okay, directly had this conversation with them. I know this. They don't know um, what C or the return ROI that they're getting, right? Because when you post that, they don't know that Joe Schmo down the street that's a Derby driver chose C4 over Monster Energy.
Right.
They don't know that. They can't. It's not trackable. So the trackable things comes through the affiliate links and all that stuff. I am not convinced that if you got C4 as Dead Man Derby, that Derby guys would understand the value and what it means to go out of their way to go through the affiliate link instead of purchasing it at the store, right? Would they go through your affiliate link and purchase a case so that way they know they can show that, hey, look, I supported TJ and I supported C4? More than likely not. And that's an issue because then you're not getting the credit for it. This is why it's so hard to get one of those energy drinks as a
Hmm.
sponsor, because the ROI is not trackable. And real quick, Brian Black asked the Jegs thing. Jegs is no longer with us because they sold the company. Okay, it wasn't because of the hatred and this and that. There was a lot of positivity too, but they sold the country or the country the company. It was a family owned company. I had ties to J3. They sold the company, and contracts get terminated. It's a 2-year deal, and it needs to be renewed, and things get negotiated, and that was no longer going to be a direction that they go. So that's how that goes. It wasn't because of the hatred and negativity. I'm just trying to, that's that word again, educate on what I experienced and what we can be better at. And talking about this, getting back to the C4 energy, if you got anything to say about that.
Chad Friend just asked about like racing fuel. What comes to me, VP racing fuel is something that definitely Valvoline, engine oil.
Okay, so this is a perfect scenario.
Yep.
Okay, perfect scenario. This is what we've got to talk about. Okay, so Chad, you say, hey, what about VP Racing Fuels? VP Racing Fuels comes in and they say, hey, we're going to be a partner with Triple D and Deadman. Well, automatically, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to say everybody at our
Has to
event
run
run VP
VP.
Racing Fuel.
Yep.
You know what people are going to say to us?
Yep.
You're crazy.
Yep.
There's no way. I don't. VP Racing Fuel is the biggest junk I've ever seen in my life. I would rather run unleaded 87 before I'd run VP Racing Fuel. That's what everyone, not everyone, but people would say that. We simply can't have that
I'm
because
not running your show because you make me run VP and I want to run 93 octane.
yes, I want to run pump gas and all that stuff, right? We simply can't have that. And VP Racing Fuel can't have that. It's the exact reason why we can't get these people. I mean, not one of the reasons why we can't get these people to come in. Because if we were to ever put our foot down and say VP Racing Fuel is the official racing fuel of Demolition Derby, people would lose their mind. They would not support it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I don't think that there's anything in our sport that is exclusive. If you took 100 derby drivers and said, "What's the best brake pedal?" You're not going to get 100 of the same answer. You're not. I don't think there's anything in our sport, including car choice. I mean, like, look at it this way: if we got Ford Motor Company in there, and they said the only thing that can be ran at Triple D and a Dead Man at Iron City, whatever, like it has to be a Ford product. There'd
Yeah.
be people going, I'm not doing that. I want to run my GM wagons. That's ridiculous. So like, I think it's our sport is a difficult sell because of what we have. The intricacies of our sport don't allow exclusivity to a product. And that's what big sponsors want is exclusivity to their product. And yes, you never ever go to a restaurant and see Coke and Pepsi at the same restaurant. There was one really weird one. I can't remember. Caleb might remember. There was one that always did both. I would be like, do you have Coke or Pepsi? And they're like, we have both. I'm like, what? How's that work? You know what I mean? Like, you rarely ever see, the only time I've ever really see anything like that is at a place that serves beer. A place that has both Miller Lite and Bud Light and Yingling and, Sierra Nevada. They have like a variety because you have to have a variety. So that might be a really good example of how variety can exist right there is every bar has 6 taps. Like we got to figure out which 6 taps are on our demolition derby bar. And we need to be able to serve those and give those opportunities out to people. And and if you look at NASCAR used to be uh it would be, GM Goodwrench is the sponsor. Budweiser is the sponsor. That was it on that car. Nothing else other than a sponsorship that was maybe this big, maybe one that was, 12 inches big made the car. Okay. Now what you're seeing is that I don't know if it's because of the ROI or what it is, but you're seeing split sponsors. Like Kevin Harvick's car, I remember when I was a kid, I used to be able to go and I used to get his Matchbox car, 164th diecast, $6.90, and it said GM Goodwrench on it. I bought that thing and I could keep that car for 3 years in a row. That's what his sponsor was going to be. Well, then this change started happening where my son has like 14 different Kevin Harvick cars. He's got a Subway car, a Hunt Brothers car, Jimmy John's car, Bush car. Like, I think that the exclusivity to having one, the exclusivity might only be, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, might only be for the drivers. Maybe that driver or this group of drivers can be sponsored by VP Racing Fuel, and the only fuel that these 6 drivers, because if you look at the NASCAR, it's like an update on the Coca-Cola family of drivers, and they show you, the screen, and they show you the 8 drivers that are part of the Coca-Cola family, where they're running currently, and they get their own little minute segment. And Coke's like, those are our guys. Maybe that's where it is. And then here comes your Jegs, drivers, and here comes your I don't know. I mean, maybe that's where the exclusivity comes in for the drivers. But until we get you know, the big one to open up to Demolition Derby as a whole, then that's when I think it'll open the gates for being able to sponsor each driver, because that's how it's going to be. It's going to be a lot like NASCAR in some ways. I really do feel that
Proof
if it
is in
gets
the
there.
pudding. You just have to look at these other motorsports and how they do things, how they operate, and all the intricacies of the day to day business. I'm telling you right now, if we could get 100 Derby drivers to buy the Boxo Tool setup tomorrow, Boxo Tool would be a sponsor of Triple D. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. It would happen. I've had the conversation with the guy, but that's called giving back. That's called partnership. That's called, we're going to buy tools somewhere. Why would we not buy them from the people that are going to support us? If we're going to buy trailers somewhere, Texas trailers or whatever, let's find a trailer manufacturer. We all have to have trailers. Let's say for the next year, everyone that needs a trailer buys from a certain thing. Well, I guarantee you we'd have a trailer sponsor real quick.
Oh yeah,
But
a heartbeat.
Yeah, 100%.
You know how many people in the Demolition Derby world win $10,000 derbies, and they won't spend a dime to fix that bent axle on that trailer?
Exactly. So we've got to create these relationships, and it purely comes through education. Like, hey guys, this is how this needs to be done. We've got it, and then once we get in with these guys, you create personal relationships, and they know people, they know people, they know people in this, they know people in that. It just, you get into that group, you're in the group, and
Here's a really good question, Dustin. So Kyle asked about vendors inside like we do. So that's something that's really important to me. So I have affiliates that I love dear to my heart, and that name behind me would not exist without them. My foundation of Dead Man was because of the supporters in the Derby world that have made these parts for us, and have built me as a driver, made this booger eater over here from Cumberland actually have a chance to win because of the parts that I run. Do other people have vendors inside like us? Because when you go to a Triple D event, you have a huge vendor row. Dead Man event, huge vendor row. You have all these people in there that sell these parts. That, in my opinion, that has to stay. I feel like there still needs to be that in person. And for me, I still want to be able to go and buy a Smith Metalworks brake pedal. I still want to be able to buy a set of Jeffy's Fab Farm headers. If you're a Petke built guy, you want to be able to go buy a Petke built set of headers. If you're a Triple D guy, you want to be able to go buy a Triple D t-shirt, a Dead Man t-shirt. Like, not the rabbit hole will get really long, and this will quickly become 3 hours. But will that still exist? Can that still exist for the people like me that still want that part of it to still exist? Does that still exist with bringing in outside people? Like, I think, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think that's where some people turn their heads in the fear of the Jegs thing. And again, I didn't even really look into it that much, and I wasn't educated enough to understand what was actually truly going on with that. But I think some people were like worried that, like, these parts are going to go away, and you're only going to be able to buy them marked up on the Jag shelf in the magazine, or like, or am I still going to be able to go and buy a SMW bumper, or am I going to have to, call up Summit and hope to God they still have one in stock and they can ship it to me next week? Like, I'm just asking the question because I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you can shed some light onto that, or
yeah, I can certainly shed some light on that. So Jegs doesn't even produce any products, period. Okay. So that's the number one thing. They're not a manufacturer of any products at all. They're simply a distributor, and they distribute all kinds of different parts. And in the professional world, These parts are all likely made. It's no different than Optima batteries. I've learned that Optima Battery is owned by a parent company that makes 90% of the batteries in North America, and they're all the same. If you go to Advanced Auto Parts, if you go to Napa, they're all made at the same facility. All they are is branded differently. That's all Jegs does. Jegs is just a distributor of race parts. So would they carry parts that people build in the Derby world? Yeah, they would absolutely do. That was conversations that happened. I actually had these conversations with several vendors about putting their products in Jegs to sell them. They did not want that. I think they were not one person said yes. And I think that was the fear of them taking over. What they didn't understand is they're just purely distributors. A brake pedal could have been sold to not only demolition derby drivers through Jegs, but it could have been sold to off-road guys. It could have been sold to a whole nother demographic that people are missing out on, and they didn't understand that.
Right there is the bingo. In my opinion, right there's the bingo. I bet you if you polled 100 drivers, they could not name one driver that drives the off-road crawler circuit.
No,
Not one. Not one.
no.
There's one. The only reason I know one is because he's from Cumberland, Maryland, and he's big time in it. He builds chassis for it now.
Yep.
That sport is completely blind to us. We have no idea, but there's so much crossover. There is so much crossover from what they do to what we do. There are so many parts that we could pull from them to put on our cars that would eliminate a lot of issues.
And they have sponsors.
Yes.
Why do they have sponsors?
Big.
Because they have organization. Yeah. It's simply that, guys. They have organization, and guess what? The rock crawlers or whatever demographic you want to talk about, they support their own. Those people, right? If they say, "Hey, look, VP Racing Fuels is the official fuel," guess who has VP Racing Fuels? Everybody that is in that series. It's purely done through education and through organization. And that's the difference, and people don't realize there's no magic wand that is going to be waved and somebody's going to come in and say, "Oh, I'm just going to give the Derby world $10 million a year." Well, for what? Oh, nothing. Just $10 million. You guys could do whatever you want with it. No, we have to organize. We have to create an actual sport. We have to get together on all of these issues that we face in the Derby world. And then we've got to get support, from our demographic. If you can't gain that support from your demographic, you're never going to go anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it happens, I think that it's all going to come down to communication. It's all going to come down to really being able to portray what, if it's Dustin Woods that's leading it, if it's Tim Clark Jr. is leading it, if it's TJ McCullough, whoever it is out there that's leading it, that person is going to have to be able to portray to the public truly what we're trying to do. They need to be able to.
You can't do that alone. You can't.
No, I agree. But there's going to listen. The problem is that there's a thing every year called a debate, a presidential debate, and every single one of them stand up on that stage and they argue and they piss and moan about the same thing. And the main thing that they want to do is just find a way to disagree with the other person to get a vote. It's going to take a panel of 6, 10, 20, I don't know, 3, 1, I don't know, to all truly agree to move in the same direction and truly believe in it, to be able to portray to the rest of everybody else what's truly there. Because it's not going to be able to just to come from one voice, but there will eventually have to be one voice that says, I'm going to be the one to sit down for this next hour and talk to you about it. Or maybe that's 3 people in a StreamYard thing that we're doing like right now. Who knows? But I think when that conversation comes, it's just going to be about getting the information out there properly to people so that they can understand what they're buying into. Like what,
But it's already got to be organized though before they buy into it. I've been in enough of these
absolutely.
conversations, and one of the things that they ask is how much reach do you got? Well, me personally, well, I mean, TJ, how much reach do you got? You've got two
Six
shows.
foot eight.
Well, no, I mean you you got two shows, right? And they're both in PA. That's not enough reach. That's just simply not enough reach to get somebody big to come in. Okay, well, let's say, oh, well, I got this guy in Ohio. He puts on a show. Okay, now you got two states. It's still not enough reach. It's not enough of the demographic, and it's just conversations that we've had. I want to touch base on this. So Dan says, and this Dan's our front wheel drive head compact inspector. He says if local racetracks can get energy drink sponsors and they set up their stands and sell their product at their events, we should be able to make it happen. That's where the ROI is. Yeah, but you're missing. There's something missing there, and the local racetracks belong to an organization that's bigger than them, that has a platform and a megaphone that is getting out to these types of people. You're right. There is ROI there. We don't necessarily have that in the Derby world. They're going to drive right past a 10,000 seat arena full of Derby people and go to the 5,000 person racetrack because they just don't know any better. It's on us to make sure they know better.
So how about this one? Okay, so C4 Energy Drink comes to me and says, we would like to be an official sponsor of Deadman. What can you offer us? Okay, well I can do it. Can no longer be Deadman. It's going to be Cellucor C4 Energy presents Deadman Derby. Cellucor presents Buried Alive 4. Blah blah blah. Here's your little blurb. Blah 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 blah. Maybe like Monster Energy Drink. The driver's shirt has a huge car rolling another car and it says Unleash the Beast on it. Whatever. If they come to me and they're like, okay, well, as a trial, we would like to offer you 100,000 cans of Cellucor C4 and we'll sell them to you for 50 cents a piece. You can sell these for no more than $5 a piece or $7 a piece at your shows. And this is our agreement. I'm probably taking a loan out and I'm going to try to sell them. Like I'm in. But that investment that I would have to make for that is a lot of money. What is that? $50,000? I'm
just call it $50,000.
Call it $50,000. I would make that investment because I know that I can get a return on my investment. That may be the way that there's an end to that. I would do that in a heartbeat.
I'm just not so convinced that you could get the people to do that, though. That's where we're at. I think
I buy almost 50,000 of them a year myself.
No, I think we're in that transition
where
you gotta, it's the education piece. We're in that transition where we've got to talk to our audience here and say, hey, look, this is what we need to be doing.
Dustin, what needs to happen is that person from Cellucor, that person from Monster Energy needs to stand on the wall at the right moment during the format or during when the Reapers come on or whatever it is in the final confrontation, youth national championship, it's down to 2, blah, blah, blah. Like they need to stand on that wall and get that feeling because that's the feeling that we're trying to portray in a boardroom that you cannot get unless you're standing on that wall. Well, we got to get that meeting. That meeting needs to happen on that's funny, Eric. It needs to happen on the track and so that they can feel because I'm telling you, when we get them there, we're going to capture them. We're going to get them. They're going to be like, I got to be a part of this. When you got 5,000 people going nuts over an opening to a show.
How can we do that? We can create content.
Yep.
Like all of us can create enough content where like they're just inherently going to stumble upon Demolition Derby and say, what the hell is this? Most of these players that we're talking about are out west. So, and out west doesn't have derbies like we have. So they're going to say, what the hell is going on here? If we create that, these are things that we can do within our Derby community. Hey, share, like.
The reason why The reason why you're standing on a soapbox for the last 3 years, the reason why we're having this conversation right now is not because Dustin Woods can do it alone.
No,
It's right.
no,
You
I
can say that
can't.
out loud, right?
I've been beating the drum where I can't do this alone. Hello, I can't do this alone.
So think about, listen, Joseph, man, I tell you, we're not talking about entry fees in 10 years, buddy. Entry fees don't exist in 10
Well,
years.
time out, because people. I want to get into this. This
Oh
is
God.
okay. So I love when people say things like this, and I appreciate the comment. But this is what I'll tell you. I already did this. Okay. I already did this, and it doesn't work. It's entry fees are not a problem in the demolition derby world, and I have evidence to back it up. The first year that we did King of Ohio, I traveled around and went to every single county fair, or one of my people went to a county fair and gave out a free entry and a t-shirt. We spent close to $20,000 on t-shirts, free t-shirts. Okay. We had 59 cars show up for 6 classes, and it was all free. And I lost so much money that first year. It was ridiculous. It was like, we can't do this again. Like, I can't structure this again. So when people come up with this, great idea. I thought it was a great idea too. But I'm telling you right now, this is the part of the sponsorship that we were talking about where our people, our demographic has to deliver. I would love to give you guys free entries. TJ would love to give you guys free entries. But if you don't use them, what does it matter? Right? If you don't come to the show, it doesn't matter. We literally put out a $60,000 purse and covered it with zero entry fees. The first year we had King of Ohio, zero. It was all free entries.
Here's the perfect example, 100% the perfect example of, and this is not everybody, because I am not gonna sit here and act like I haven't had 1,000 people come to me, thank me, say just incredible things about what went down this past couple. Man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mock Mountain Dew, and you're sipping one. My
I
bad,
had,
man. Um,
I had to.
uh,
I didn't do that for you. I just had it here.
I got you. Um, I'm sorry. I can't squirrel myself like that.
Go ahead. You were talking about people messaging you, and
Oh, I don't think that I could ever be thankful enough to have all the people that have supported us. I always call them the army of the dead. I mean, they're the best part about Dead Man. Triple D doesn't exist without its drivers and without its fans, and Dead Man doesn't exist without the amazing army of the dead that we have out there backing us. But here's the thing: how many times have you stayed in a hotel, no bed bugs, clean bathroom, just perfect breakfast, awesome stay, the staff was awesome? Like, how many of those times, let's say you've had that happen 10 times. How many of those times did you write a letter to corporate thanking them for a great experience?
zero.
Zero. Now, you get your blue light out, you start seeing a bed bug, oh, you're down to the front desk immediately. You see rust in the toilet, you're taking pictures of it and you're posting it on your Instagram, and you're complaining nonstop about how the person wasn't quite, the biscuits weren't fresh. They were too crispy for my liking. Like, we complain about everything immediately when it offends us. But what I think, I don't know if you're trying to portray this or not, but let's just say I had I had 5,000 people come to a Dead Man show. If I could get all 5,000 of those people to write a very strongly worded positive letter about their experience at Dead Man, and say, and write that to a C4 or to Jags or whatever it is, don't you think that would be pretty impactful, that every single time these people opened the mailbox, there were 15 letters or 15 messages or 15 emails or 15 posts, or every single time that, they put a lot of stuff into their marketing department, and don't think that every single time that you mention, hey, really appreciate that my Jegs product showed up 2 days late. You don't think that they see that? They see that. They 100% see that. They have algorithms set up that every single time that their company's mentioned, it comes through. So every single time we mention them in a positive way or mention them in a negative way, it is going to be very clear to them that's their return on investment. That's how they, you don't like think about how many times that you hear a presidential person say his approval rating's 96%. They didn't ask me. They don't have to because they're listening right here, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
they're listening, believe me. Sorry, I didn't mean to put my aluminum foil hat on there, but like, they're listening and watching everything that you say. So you as Derby fans, I mean, I think Alex Vasco, I'm going to look it up right now. All for Him Racing videos has 58,000 followers. Okay. That's a lot. I mean, I know I'm over here trying to get to 10 so that I can start breaking through some of those monetary things. Dead Man has 20,000. So let's take these 58,000 people from Alex Vasco. That means there's 58,000. Let's say, I don't know that there's one that has more than that. Let's say that he's the top. Just for giggles, let's say that he's the top. There's your limit. We are not getting any sponsor at all with 58,000 people. 58,000 people is nothing. 58,000 people is an absolute empty stadium in any NASCAR race. 58,000 people when Bristol seats 180 is a crap crowd, and they're losing their butts on their investment. We've got to find a way to triple that number, quadruple that number. In fact, we got to find a way to get that number. Like if NASCAR had a website, had a Facebook, how many followers would be on it?
Millions.
Like 30, 40 million, maybe even more than that. 30, 40 million. And you want to know why that's important? Because I can convince 100 people to run Superstock at Deadman. This is what you should do. These are the rule sets for you. Dustin, if you brought a wagon here, you could finish in the top 3 at Deadman. I guarantee it. I'm telling you, you could run a wagon here. I can have this conversation with 100 people. I might only get 50 of those people to go, yeah, you know what? He's right. He's right. I probably could finish in the top 3. And then out of those 50 people, only maybe 30 of them have that weekend off. And then of those 30, only 15 of them already have a car, already have all the parts, already have everything to put on the car for those rule sets. And then only 7 of them show up. But I've been advertising, I've been talking to 100 drivers. 100 drivers say that they're interested in this. 100 drivers say they're interested in this. And then I field 7 cars. That's what the problem is in Demolition Derby. So we have to find a way to make that number not 100. We have to make it 10,000. I need to be able to push this class. That's why shows like these bigger shows fill in 2 minutes. It's not because they're the best show. They've created a spot of exclusivity that you want to be a part of it. They've created more demand than they have spots. That's what we need to do in this sport. And if there are a total of 58,000 registrations available throughout a year in Demolition Derby, if there's, call it, 1,100 promoters and there's 58,000 total registrations that go on in that year, right here on this phone is telling me that there's only 58,000 people following Alex Vasco. Okay. That means we only have enough to fill each registration with one person per time. That number's not big enough. It has to be 700, 800,000. It has to be 900,000. It has to be 1 million to follow him so that when he posts a video about Deadman, my show's selling out. So that is where you come in, Kyle Baker, Joseph Crow, Chad Dunlap, Chad Friend, Christy Major, all of you guys out there that are on here, Eric Cunningham, like I'm just reading Jordan Burgess. I mean, this is where you can go and say, you got to see what happened at Deadman the other day. You got to see this idiot jump. Don't show him me jumping the car because then they probably won't sponsor me. But like this idiot put 2 vans together and ran a class with 2 front ends like we're going to do at No Mercy. Dustin Woods runs this crazy thing called the Format. And there's a sponsor out there that goes, wait a minute, Format? Why don't you look at how we do things here at this company? And Format's actually one of the big things that's a key word in our demographic. And this is perfect. Now we take and we say we're going to be the official sponsor of Triple D because you already got our word in here. Like, like, I mean, come on, like it makes sense to do all this, but we need the drivers out there to start pushing. When you like something, you got to be as passionate about liking something as you do as when you hate it. And that's us too. You know, like you have to give a like, you have to give a share, you have to push it. Like it really goes a long way when we make a post if you just share it. If you just make a comment on it. If you post a picture of your car, yes, you can
Think,
scribble out the
think
front
about this.
bumper.
Think about this, TJ. Think about this. Posting a picture. If every single car posted a picture that they were coming to Buried Alive a month ago, I guarantee you your audience would have been bigger
It would have.
because they would have got out to more people. And with a bigger audience means the show would have brought in more money, which then you could pay out more money. This, oh, I'm not going to, I did it for you. I know I did it for you. I literally went out of my way to post pictures, tell everybody where I was going, and post videos. Imagine if everybody at the event did that. Remember, we're trying to sell entertainment. I was letting everyone know of the 5 fans that I maybe have. Hey, the 5 fans, I am going to Dead Man, and if you want to see me get killed, if you want to make fun of me because I'm not a good driver, or if you want to see me win the event, I'm going here. So if you're entertained, by what by me and what I'm doing, there's 5 more people that showed up. Now
Listen,
I do want
you
to make
got
one.
more than that.
Well, whatever, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I do want to make one point, and this is where we're wrong in Demolition Derby. And I'm not picking on Kyle. I'm just saying. Okay, I want to make one point. This is where the education piece comes into play. We have to create healthy relationships. I've long said this with the county fairs and whatnot. Okay. So when you go to a hotel, right, and you say, hey, I want a deal because I'm selling out your hotel at $75 a night. We in the Derby world, we have to stop asking for deals and favors. Relationships work because they're healthy both ways. So that hotel, okay, that hotel may sell us every single hotel in the or every single room in the hotel at $75 a night. What we don't know is that the manager that made that decision, it actually cost $79 to operate that hotel for the night. Okay. And when the big GM comes in, he's going to say, why would you discount our rooms from 150 to 75? See, there's operating cost everywhere. If we go in there and we say, hey, look, your rooms are 150, we're paying 150 and we're selling it out. You create a healthy relationship that now you can, maybe they can give us 10 more rooms to accommodate people and this and that. In the Derby world, most people, and this is not just the hotel situation, everybody wants a deal. You can't get deals and sponsorships. We can't create, like, if every time I went to Jeffy's Fab Farm, and I said, "Hey Jeffy, your headers are $150. Can I get them for 100?" Every time Jeffy said, "Yeah, you can get them for 100." Jeffy Fab Farm is not going to be in business any longer because he's giving away his product, and he's going to find out. Like a lot of vendors in the Derby world have found out that if you don't make money, you're not going to be around. Yes, you were a friend to TJ in that moment because he asked for that header for 100, and the high five is great. The high five doesn't pay the bills, and the getting that $50 off doesn't pay the bills. We've got to pay it forward, and paying it forward means we support our own. We create healthy relationships with the people that are supporting us. I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense. Like I understand what Kyle's coming from because in today's economy, it's really hard for a driver to get to the Derby with the expenses that they have. Like that makes 100% sense. Um, I've actually had hotels say, "Well, why would we give you a deal where you're going to come in here and people have to have a place to stay instead of 150 a night? We're going to make it 250 a night." And guess what? If we only fill 75%, of our room, we don't care because we're still making the same amount of money if we would have done it. But people are going to have a place to stay, and they're just going to complain to you. They ain't going to complain about us. They're going to say, geez, TJ, it costs $250 to stay in Cumberland. Like, I had to travel 50 minutes away just to find a $150 hotel room. Like, that's happened. That's real happened. Like, I understand where Kyle's coming from because, like I've called several places, and it's actually happened to me. I believe it was Jay County Fair when I went to Metal Mayhem 2019. I called them, and I got a rate. I think it was like 135, and I I can't remember why, but I had to call them back to like make an adjustment to something. And when I called them back, and I'm like, yeah, because when I'm at the Derby, like I want to be able to. And she was like, wait a minute, you're with the Derby? And I was like, yes. And then she was like, oh, well, we need to change your rate. All Derbies are $99. And I'm like, I didn't even ask for it. That's a little different. If a hotel sees the value in a weekend where they're sitting idle, that you're not getting a hotel to make you a deal on Memorial Day weekend. You're not getting a hotel anytime that there's a travel holiday. You're not getting a deal because they know that those rooms are going to be, which is exactly the same reason why you cannot get, and maybe it's just me, we cannot get skid steers, dozers, rollers, and stuff like that super, super cheap and donated because the demand for them so high that giving them out for free, they're losing money. Like you can't just go to a place and say, "Can I have 3 skid steers for this weekend?" and I'll make it, skid steers dead man derby. Like it doesn't work that way because they're like, "Well, listen, I got a contract company that needs 6 skid steers for the next 4 months. Like I'm not going to give them to you for free when I can rent them out $350 a day." And the contractor fee and all the insurance and all that stuff I'm getting from them. So like that's where that comes in and that's where expenses get really high for us because we can't get those deals, which is why we try to like, I don't know how you do things, but I kind of almost try to like, I don't know, share a deal, a mutual benefit. Like, hey, listen, if you can help me in this way, I can help you in this way. Does this work for you? Like, I don't really even like to put sponsorship tiers out there. I like kind of saying, call me, let's work something out and put a dollar amount on it. Like, hey, you just want me to say Triple D 10 times this week on my lives? Okay, it's $100. And you might say, hey, DJ, listen, tell you what, instead of that, every time I do a live, I'll say Dead Man. No money's being exchanged, but I'm getting my name said 10 times on yours. You're getting yours 10 times as a mutual benefit. That's kind of like where it's going. But like, I don't know. There's a lot to be said about that as far as like every single thing's different though. Hotels,
You're
restaurants,
right
like
about that. Everything's different.
every single one of them is different.
But what I mean, I guess my point was like we have to you have to pay it forward, and some things are just going to cost more. I'm not sure exactly every situation, but I'm telling you, if you continue to sell out that hotel, they'll cut you better deals. But man,
Eventually.
but man, I'm telling you right now, like you said, if you call that hotel, they've been called 10 times this week of a promise of somebody going to sell their hotel out. They don't listen to that BS. You either perform and sell the hotel out for multiple years in a row, probably. And then all of a sudden, hey, you've created a relationship with the Howard Johnson in Lima, or wherever, what you guys are doing over there and Buried Alive. And then you can ask for favors. But we have to do that. We have to pay it forward as a community, and we have to do it in more than just hotels and more. We have to do it with sponsors that we're trying to get into the sport and along those lines too.
So you can request numbers too. Like you can request, maybe you may not get them, but you can request numbers for hotels to tell you what their capacity was during your events. You can request numbers for restaurants to say what was your business like when my event was in there. You can also walk in and be like, "You know what? Why don't you take a look at October 26th through the 31st at your sales? And then I want you to compare that to 3 years ago when I wasn't here. When you're ready to talk, call me."
Sure.
It doesn't always work that way, but it works that way
Hmm.
because like and I haven't been able to get any of those conversations yet. I haven't been able to land those because some people are just about they're not looking to pay it back. They're looking to just be like, hey, we had a really great weekend because the Derby was here. There's a gas station right down from the Demolition Derby, the BF's, that's right down from Rural King down there. Um, they said, can you bring us 6 event shirts? We'll wear them all day during all the shifts. We'll tell everybody about the Derby. And we actually put um, little flyers on their desk. And I said, can I just leave these here so that everybody can see these, and if they want one, they can take one? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. I came back in and I was like, hey, are you out of those? Like, did that many people take them? And she goes, no, honestly, we just thought it would be better that every single person that came in, we shoved it in their bag. And I'm like, that's cool that they did that. Like, that was cool that they took the initiative as not even a sponsor. We didn't exchange any money. I gave them a couple shirts and they pushed our product. And the reason why they were pushing our product was because the last time I was there, I was wearing a Dead Man shirt and they were like, hey, do you know who runs that Derby? And I'm like, actually, it's me. And they're like, we need to talk because our sales were up really high. We'd like to, work with you. And when's your event coming back so that we know we can stock ice and beer and stuff like that? Well, then it's easy for me to hop on the mic and say, listen, you want a cold beverage? You need some ice? Hop down to BS. Half mile down the road on the left. That's a mutual benefit. Now, who knows, next year, after they've seen 2 years of sales, maybe we've already had the conversations about talking about them being on the event apparel. That's how that relationship starts to happen. But that just happens on a small scale from what we're looking at for Demolition Derby as a whole, not just Dead Man.
Look, I want to get in. I think we need to do another podcast. This is obviously we're going on 2 hours now, so which is it's a great conversation. We still got people in here, so I appreciate that. But I want to have another conversation about the sponsor side of things and what it means to pay it forward. And I want to pull up this Kevin Harvick thing and talk a little bit more about that. But obviously, I don't want to bore people to death. But I appreciate you coming on. I think this is a good talk for all. We have to keep having these conversations. I don't really care what people say about me, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to keep having these conversations because they have to happen, and that's the only way we're going to get somewhere. We have to keep educating everybody, educating ourselves on how we get there, what it means, and why moving the same direction is extremely important to all of us. Not one of us, all of us, and it's extremely important to leave the sport, better tomorrow than it was today. And that's all we can do. And that's what we're doing by this, having these conversations. So TJ, I appreciate you guys coming on. Are you coming on? And I appreciate everybody staying around and commenting. If we didn't get to your comment, we'll get to it next time. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. we have these podcasts, and I'm sure I'll have TJ back on. Look, we talked about the social media stuff and all that. Please get on our socials, Dead Man Derby, Triple D, on the TikTok, the Facebook, the YouTube, all that stuff, and watch our content, but share, like, view, our content, please, because there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. This isn't, to take 2 hours out of your night. Obviously, there's other things that we could be doing. We don't want to do anything else, guys. We want derbying to become not or transition from a hobby to a sport in which people this is what you're doing for a living. And you're not going, you're not ticked off about your job, not letting you off work or something. You're literally doing something in Demolition Derby for a living. So it's what we want, right?
It is. And there's, like I said, you could do 13, 14 podcasts on the same topic, on the same branches off of this topic. There's going to come a day where, there's offered 38 or 36 charters right now in NASCAR, and there's 36 charters are bought. They're bought by team owners. They're investors with sponsorship, multiple sponsorships help buy that, help put forth the money for the cars and for the garages and everything that they have. Imagine a world where there's, 50 full-size charters. There's 100 compact charters. There's, 50 van charters. And imagine looking into the camera right now as a driver. Imagine being a part of that where you have a charter and you in that charter you're sponsored by, you know, let's just say the what was the tool again?
Boxo.
Boxo tool and C4 energy drink. And on the side of the car, you also got, you know, a little Dead Man logo because, you know, Dead Man's there, and Triple D logo because it's there. And you have all that. And you're looking at your car and you're like, wow, I made it because I don't go 9 to 5 anymore. The requirement for me is to show up 5 times a year and put a show on that's going to be on Fox Sports Network, ESPN, USA. Who knows? Might just be a Netflix series. It might be live streaming on TikTok. You know, you never know where it is, but you could be like I never ever would have thought that I would have 175,000 people watch me hit Devin Germain with a stunner, but it happened. And it can happen for you guys, and I want you guys to take it as serious as you possibly can to understand that you're not just some booger eater from Cumberland, Maryland. You have the potential to be one of the most famous demolition derby drivers to ever grace national television. You don't have to, you know, make your name at every local county fair and skip across the country and everything like that. You'll be able to reach people just by them sitting back, kicking back in a recliner, and turning on the television. And that is a real thing that can happen. Um, I don't know that if it happens that I'll ever get to drive on that stage, or if my position in that might be something different. Um, but listen, I'm telling you right now, if it ever happens, I hope that I'm even just lucky enough to clean the toilets for him because it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, well said, man. So thank you guys very much. We'll tune in next Tuesday at 8.
All right, guys. See ya.